I want you to imagine this, a massive Chinese warship worth billions of dollars, cutting through the waves of the South China Sea. It's big, it's imposing, it's supposed to intimidate. Now picture this, a much smaller Philippine Coast Guard patrol vessel, steady and calm, refusing to back down. And then, the unthinkable happens. The Chinese destroyer collides, not with the Philippine ship, but with its own escort. Chaos for them, discipline for us, and the world is watching. Because what happened that day wasn't just an accident. It was proof of something bigger, that courage, discipline, and strategy can outmatch brute force. This is the story of how the Philippine Coast Guard, with just 82 patrol vessels compared to China's 355 warships, is suddenly being studied by military experts worldwide. And why nations are realizing that in modern conflict, brains often beat brawn. You know, the Philippine Coast Guard isn't new to confrontation. For decades, Filipino sailors have faced harassment, water cannons, and dangerous maneuvers in these contested waters. Take 2012, during the Scarborough Shoal standoff. Chinese vessels blocked Filipino fishermen, intimidating them with their sheer size. But even then, the Coast Guard didn't break. They stood firm, documenting every incident and making sure the world saw exactly what was happening. That's the first secret of the PCG. They fight not just with ships, but with evidence. Every radio call, every video, every logbook, all of it builds a case in the court of global opinion. And in 2016 it paid off. The Philippines won a historic victory at The Hague, proving that China's sweeping claims in the South China Sea had no legal basis. That ruling was a turning point, and the Coast Guard was central to it. They didn't just sail ships, they built the evidence that changed history. Here's what shocks outsiders. The Philippines doesn't have a massive navy. No nuclear subs, no aircraft carriers, just modest patrol vessels. Most less than 500 tons. But size isn't everything. The Coast Guard has mastered asymmetric tactics, small, quick maneuvers that frustrate and confuse larger warships. Think of it like a boxing match. You've got a giant heavyweight throwing massive punches, but the smaller fighter is fast, precise, and lands the jabs that matter. Military analysts call this mosquito tactics. China's navy might be a shark, but the PCG has learned how to sting again and again, forcing mistakes. And when Chinese ships lost composure and collided with each other, that wasn't just bad luck, it was proof of psychological pressure. The Philippines didn't flinch, China did. Now here's the fascinating part. The Philippine Coast Guard is no longer just a regional story. Navies and think tanks around the world are watching. Why? Because the Coast Guard is proving three big lessons. Lesson 1. Discipline beats intimidation. The PCG never takes the bait. No reckless ramming, no firing back, just calm, professional navigation. That calmness embarrasses aggressors who expect chaos. Lesson 2. Evidence is a weapon. By recording and sharing every incident, the Philippines wins the information war. Videos of water cannons and dangerous blockades don't just stay on YouTube. They end up in diplomatic summits and UN reports. Lesson 3. Alliances grow from courage. The United States, Japan, and Australia have all stepped up joint patrols with the Philippines. Why? Well, because courage attracts allies. Nobody wants to stand beside a country that caves in. But a small nation standing tall, that inspires respect. But let's not forget, behind the ships and strategy are real people. Ordinary Filipinos serving extraordinary missions. Imagine being a young Coast Guard sailor, You know your ship is smaller, slower, less armed, yet you sail anyway. You face down water cannons that could knock you off deck. You get rammed by ships 10 times your size, and you go back out the next day, knowing it could happen again. That's courage. That's Bayanihan, the Filipino spirit of sacrifice for the greater good. And when videos of these encounters go viral, it's not just Filipinos who feel inspired. The world sees it too. They see a nation refusing to bow, even when the odds seem impossible. Here's the thing, this isn't just about reefs or shoals, it's about the future of the Indo-Pacific. If the Philippines can hold the line, it proves something vital, that smaller nations have power. That law matters. That size doesn't guarantee victory. That's why, US admirals openly say they're studying Philippine tactics. That's also why Japan and Australia are boosting support. And that's why Singapore and Vietnam quietly watch honestly, with both admiration and caution. Because the Philippines has done what many thought impossible, yeah, it has made a superpower stumble. So, what's next? The Coast Guard isn't stopping, it's adding more ships, more training, and more international exercises. And most importantly, it's keeping the same calm discipline that has already won global respect. Will China keep testing the waters? Absolutely. But every time they do, the Philippines gains more sympathy, more allies, and more global recognition. In other words, every reckless act by a bigger navy, well, it actually makes the smaller one stronger. So, why can't the world stop talking about the Philippine Coast Guard? Because honestly, it's not just a Navy story, it's a human story. So, it's about fishermen being protected, it's about ordinary sailors, doing extraordinary things. And it's about a nation showing that, honestly, courage matters way more than cannons. And it's about this simple truth, you really don't need to be the biggest to be the bravest. The Philippines just proved it, and well, the world is definitely taking notes. The Coast Guard ships may be small, but the spirit behind them? Absolutely unstoppable. And that's exactly why the world just can't stop talking. But here's the deeper reason why the story resonates far beyond Manila, or the South China Sea. Because in every corner of the world, people understand what it means to be outmatched, yet refuse to be outdone. When a small fishing boat sets out into rough waters, it carries not just nets, but the hopes of a family. When a Coast Guard cutter sails into a contested sea, it carries not just sailors, but the dignity of a nation. And when those sailors hold the line, the whole world sees something familiar. The courage of standing up, even when the odds say, sit down. This isn't just about geopolitics, it's about principle. It's about that stubborn, unshakable belief that the size of your spirit matters more than the size of your ship. And maybe that's why the Philippines story has traveled so far. Because every country, big or small, sees a piece of itself in that defiance. Every person who has ever been underestimated feels a spark of recognition. So the next time you hear the words Philippine Coast Guard, remember, it's not just about the sea, it's about the shorelines they protect, the families who sleep easier, the message they send to the world, that bravery is contagious, that dignity floats, and that even the smallest ship, with the right hands on the wheel, can change the tide. And that is why the world is still listening.